Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Backchat. I am Maggie and this is Amy, my partner. Together we're ThinkerThemer. Usually Amy's all about mechanics.
I made Maggie do the intro and Maggie is so lost.
I'm like, I don't know what you say. Anyways, this is the series where we actually look at Kickstarter.
I'm Maggie.
I was doing really well.
You were.
All right, I'll take that again. This is the series where we talk about crowdfunded games. So things that are on Kickstarter, things that are on GameFound, campaigns that are still running, so you still can kind of get in on the action if you are watching this close to when we release it. But yeah, and we rate them. So these are going to be the top 10 campaigns based on our level of excitement. So when when you see the numbers coming up on the screen, they're how excited we are out of 10.
Yeah, and it's really late at night here in Australia, so this could be an interesting episode, but we need to get lots of recording done before we head off, hopefully, to the US next week.
So this could be a disaster.
This could be. So bear with us. We're look, it's late.
Yeah.
So let's get straight into our top 10. And our number 10 is a game called Iron Forest, which is dexterity extraordinaire. It's a game brought to you by the same makers as Ice Cool, which is a game that we haven't actually played before, but looks like it's a lot of dexterity fun. And this one is too. And this one is a double level feat of engineering where you get to use a catapult. Let's be honest, the main thing about this campaign is that catapult, where you're going to be placing the little figurines in there.
Yeah, the mechs.
And flicking them up to the top level, trying to achieve different things depending on the scenario that you've set up. So at the start of the game, you're going to be drawing a card, setting up a particular scenario, and then there are two teams. You're going to be divided into two teams, and it's going to be a competitive game to,
essentially, you're trying to get through different either gates or holes. So if you're on the top level, you kind of go through one of those little holes and then you get to take the little marker that says grip. I've completed that one. You can kind of smash into one another. Sometimes you might smash into that other person or that other mech and allow them to complete a goal by mistake. And it's like, well, such is life.
Such is life, yeah.
So it's just
And it's just a fun dexterity game. If you watch the channel, that Maggie hates fun.
I hate fun.
So we won't
not here for fun.
We won't be backing this one. I have to say though, this is a game that I would love to try sometime if it was at a con or even someone else's house. It's just probably not a game that would get much play if we personally owned it. But it does look phenomenal. It is $85 US, I believe, for the regular pledge, which is quite expensive, but it is, it comes with catapults. It comes with a lot of bits and pieces, and it is a Kickstarter exclusive. So if you are interested in it, make sure you can go and check it out while it's live on the campaign. That is our number 10.
Iron Forest.
Thank you.
Our number 9 is a game called Recklin Run. This is a game by Scott Alms, and it takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where we have our vehicle that we're going to be equipping with all sorts of different upgrades to then race to the death. Well, not quite to the death, but we're going to be potentially battling other kind of enemy cast. This is a solo game, but it's also got this lovely campaign mode, or it's mostly through a campaign, so you're kind of working your way through different scenarios.
Now, I'm not a solo gamer, but actually this game really appealed to me to begin with because I was looking into it, and the campaign mode is pretty cool. I'm not one for narrative, but I know Maggie is. And so I thought Maggie would be even more excited than she actually is. Yeah. And we talked about why that is. But I just want to talk about the way the game works because it plays essentially in two phases. In the first phase, you're going to be using the pips on some dice that you're rolling to basically pay for upgrades to your vehicle. And you're going to be upgrading your vehicle such that it is much stronger, has powerful attacks for when the enemies drive up next to you, and then it's going to be a battle. And the battle plays out again with you operating essentially what is an enemy AI by rolling dice and then activating the attack. And this all takes place within this campaign or story. I believe there's envelopes that you get to open along the way. And so it does seem like for a very contained game, they've created more of this big experience around it, which is kind of cool. And you can play as different characters. You have different vehicles as well. And at all times, you're trying to protect the core of your car from being damaged.
Yeah, I think I like the concept of this game overall. And I do enjoy the post-apocalyptic world, as a setting for games, but I don't tend to enjoy as much when it's like a race and then where you're like upgrading to battle. And so that, from a thematic point, lost me a bit. And I think that's pretty much largely why. That and the rolling of dice, because it's like I always feel like, well, there's always going to be that huge element of luck. And yes, it's about kind of mitigating and looking at where you're placing things, but still, yeah.
Yeah, a bit combat-y for you.
Yeah, too combat-y.
But the game is a really, relatively small game. You can pick up a few previous titles as well as part of the campaign. To get it to Australia, of course, it comes in just under $100. I think around $85, which is quite expensive for a small box solo experience. But I do appreciate that they are trying to really build it out into something that is much more variable and kind of this long-term experience that you can play over a number of sessions. So it does look really cool. If you're interested in Scott Elm's solo games, go and check it out.
Yeah.
That is our number 9.
Recklin Run.
Our number 8 is a game called Floating Floors, and this is the second dexterity game in our list this week. It is a much smaller dexterity experience, very much a family weight kind of filler style game, but it is a lot of fun. You are going to be playing as different ninjas who are moving around a space that's created with a series of tiles or cards, really, square cards. And these cards you're going to be building upwards. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to be placing these floating floorboards that are balanced on little pieces,
little cubes and cylinders,
and little triangles that are not at all structurally sound.
And then very flimsy construction.
Very flimsy. I don't think they had any kind of permits to build this structure. And then you're going to be moving your ninjas across this space to try and get from one end to the other to pick up these little Bansen tokens. And they are going to be the goal, and the person who can collect all of their Bansen first is going to be the winner. But it's not that easy because your ninja can only stand on spaces of their same color, your player color, or on the wrong player color, as long as they're balancing on one of those tiny pieces. And so
of their own color.
Their own color. So it becomes this real balancing act of trying to move around the space and not tip everything over. If you do tip everything over, then you need to rely on the opponent to the left of you, the next player, to put it all back together for you. And make no doubt that they are going to make it as difficult as possible for you to escape that area of the board. I took great pride in making it really difficult for Maggie, and trying to balance things as far away from each other as possible.
Even with my shaky hands, I
win
still
every time.
Win every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
The game we've played is with a prototype copy, so and we already reviewed it on Small Talk, so you can go and check that out in more detail. It is, I believe, coming to an end on Kickstarter this week, so check it out if you haven't already. That is our number 8, Floating Floors.
Our number 7 is a game called Dogfight. In Dogfight, we are dogs who fly planes with the aim of shooting the other team's planes down. So we're actually going to be playing in teams. One of us is going to be playing as the pilot of the plane, and the other one is going to be playing as the gunner. The whole aim of this game is that we're going to be playing kind of like in real time, deciding and kind of trying to give each other signs and symbols, or signals, I should say, as to what sequence of cards we're going to be playing without actually talking. And this is all going to be done at the same time as the other team is doing it. So you're going to have that mix of like you trying to communicate, but also trying to figure out what they might be doing.
Because it's all hidden programming, and so you're trying to obviously make the best plan with your gunner if you're the pilot, but if you say something out loud, then the other team is going to know exactly where you're going and exactly where you're going to shoot. And so you do need to work out this secret language with each other to try and be like, oh, maybe we should go that way a little bit, or maybe we should shoot them in the center. And so I imagine that is where the fun of this game comes from. This is actually a game coming out of Australia, which is really cool to see some Australian designers. And it's a really interesting twist on that programming style game. The gunner will have a deck of cards that has mostly cards relating to attacks with a little bit of movement, whereas the pilot has mostly movement cards with a little bit of attack. So you really do need to work together in order to land these hits and hopefully gun down your opponent. The theme not really my thing to kind of shoot down someone else's plane.
Yeah.
It's not like, and being dogs in planes doesn't super appeal to me. But the mechanics and the fact that there's this idea of like trying to plan something in secret, I really like that. And I like it in a smaller game because it reminds me of like Captain Sonar, which is a game that's really hard to get to the table because it requires so many people.
Yeah.
This you'd still need, 4 people ideally. But it feels like it would play much quicker.
Yes.
So I really like it as a concept. We're not backing it, however, just mainly because of the cost. It's a little bit expensive. Unfortunately, it's an Australian designer, and I believe it's probably being made, close by, but it's really expensive, the shipping. So the shipping is almost as much as backing the game, which is really unfortunate and puts it in that kind of $70 space, which is a lot for a small box game. But we hope to see it in retail, and we'll likely pick it up at a later stage. But that is our number 7, Dogfight.
Our number 6 is a game called Block by Block Uprising, and in this game we are playing as co-op or semi-co-op, and it's actually more of an area liberation game, so not quite area control, because in this game we are rebelling, so we're playing as different factions rebelling against the establishment. So the factions could be workers, they could be prisoners, or neighbors is one of the factions, and so as rebellious groups we're going to be fighting back, pushing back. There's going to be a lot of kind of pushing back against the police and looking at barricades and looting of shopping centers and all sorts of craziness that happens with any kind of rebellion.
It is a really interesting theme, and one that you don't see very often, which is like you're playing as a group that is kind of fighting for social justice. It is a really interesting theme. What doesn't interest me about this game though is that co-op, semi-co-op element of the game.
Yeah.
I believe in a 2-player game it has to be co-op, and in like higher player counts, the way that you decide whether it's co-op or semi-co-op is through drawing a card that explains kind of the goal of that game and whether it is co-op or semi-co-op. So for me, the game doesn't seem to change very much when it's in its competitive state. So it's a little too cooperative for my liking. But this is the 3rd edition of this game. So there have been 2 previous editions, and I believe they've been pretty hard to come by. So if this is something that has been on your radar in the past, now is the time to go and check it out on Kickstarter. That is our number 6, Block by Block Uprising. Our number 5 is a game called Retrograde, and it's exciting because it's set in an arcade, and you know how I feel about arcades. I love them. And the theme of this game is very much Space Invaders, and it's a roll and write game. But what's really cool about this game is it is very much live play.
Yeah, real time.
Real time, simultaneous play where you all have your own collection of dice, and the dice are so cool because all they are is the little Astro Droid, Space Invader little dudes on the dice themselves, and you'll be rolling them all at the same time, and you are going to be able to keep rolling them until you feel like you've got a great combination of those droids. And what you're looking for is pairs, and when you find that you've got the right pairs, you compare it to a series of cards that are in the center of the table. Those cards are going to dictate the types of pairs that you're going to be able to score. And because it's real time, you need to grab at those cards as fast as you can. And so everyone around the table is going to be rolling until they feel satisfied and it matches one of those scoring conditions on the cards. They will all grab a card. And if you're the last one left rolling those dice, then everybody else can call stop on you, and you will have to stop where you are, and then you get 2 more re-rolls, and then you basically have to take what's left in terms of the cards. And then everyone takes their cards back, and it will enable them to cross out certain Astro Droids on their
shooting at
piece
those.
of paper.
Those are the ones you're blasting. They're the target cards.
You're blasting them, and you're trying to get rows and columns completed to get the big bad guy, the boss.
Get all the what do you call it? The little minions underneath, then you can get the boss.
You can get the boss, you can collect coins, you can get special powers, and really you're just trying to maximize your score score by the end of the game. I have never played a roll and write game that is real time. We've looked at a couple of them on Kickstarter, but I've never actually played one of them.
Yeah.
I think that first drafting element would be super fun, and I really, really would like to try that. I just think I like the idea of that racing and that pushing your luck of when to stop rolling and to grab one of the scoring conditions.
Yeah.
I really like that as an idea. The thing that's kind of holding me back a little bit from this game is I worry that the puzzle itself is going to be too simple.
Simple. Okay. Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Because it is a really small puzzle, and I don't know how many cascading combos and that kind of thing that we love in a like crunchier roll and write would actually be possible in this game.
Yeah, I feel like the main thing is, with those target cards, some of them have unique abilities that you can unlock. And so even though you collect them and you get to kind of use it, those abilities you're only able to use once you unlock them, which is almost like, to me, is the Tetris thing, because it's about when you complete rows, then that allows you to unlock one of those cards that you have.
Yeah, and I just think it may be a little too light for us in terms of the puzzle and the types of roll and writes that we do play. So for that reason, I haven't backed it. One other thing that was kind of interesting, I don't know if you noticed on the campaign when you were looking through, but when you go to score, you fold the top of the paper down. And I thought that's really clever, because then you can see everything that you're scoring and write on it. But then I realized that means that the other side of the piece of paper is not usable.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how that actually
because
works.
It's not on the front, which means that the other side is not usable, which is like when you have a pack of 100 sheets, I would rather them be double-sided. Anyway, that is just a small curiosity that I noticed when I was going through the page. But it is I think it's around $50 delivered, so it's not too expensive, but for us, we're just looking for something a bit crunchier. But go and check it out. Great theme. That is our number 5 retrograde.
And number 4 is an expansion for the game Unfair, which we actually really, really enjoy. And in Unfair, you are building, a bit of tableau building, but you're building your own theme park. We all are building our own theme park. And so you're kind of collecting attractions, and you're making sure that you're optimizing the way that, your guests are going to be giving you money and all sorts of things. And particularly with Unfair, there's a little bit of sabotaging or messing with one another's theme parks.
More than a little bit, and more than a few times you were very sad.
Pretty mean, yes.
But you were sad.
Pretty devastating. Like, I'd spent all this time building this beautiful theme park castle, and then like a sand castle, someone comes over and kicks it, and it's just destroyed, and it's very, very sad.
It is. You were very sad. We playing Unfair, we had a hug moment. We have done a comparison video of Unfair and Funfair, which are both available as part of this campaign. I'll link to it above, but we do really love Unfair. Spoiler alert, that is our favorite of the two.
Yeah.
Because we don't mind a little bit of take that in our games, and it has some really fun tension in it around, especially those event cards where you either can have something good happen to you or something bad happen to the other players. And I really love that tension and that choice. It's really, really cool. And it is so thematic.
Very, very, it's one of those games that just really feels really super thematic. So this expansion brings in more themes, which is the beauty of this game. It's like you have all these different themes to pick from, and you often combine them. So you combine usually a couple of them. So this is introducing more themes. It's a comic book, so you've got sort of heroes. It's got hackers, which is probably the meanest of them all, where you're actually going to be hacking into one another's attractions and shutting them down. But it's a really cool thing because you've got like Wi-Fi as well, which is a good thing for your, for your, what do you call it, for your guests, because they can tap into Wi-Fi. But the more Wi-Fi you have, the more vulnerable you become to being hacked.
Hacking you can do.
And more vulnerable you are to be hacked. So there's also an ocean theme, which is meant to be like a lot more relaxing and a bit more kind of pleasant. And then there's also one for kaiju, I think that's how it's pronounced. And that one actually introduces destruction. So sort of like your big sort of monster that comes in and destroys bits and pieces. And this actually introduces dice as well.
Which one were you most excited about?
Probably... Actually, not the superhero one, because I'm really not really into superheroes. Actually, the one that I'm most excited about is the fact that it's introducing a solo mode. So it's not actually any of these themes in particular.
Of course, that was your most exciting part.
It's the fact that now there's there's a solo mode introduced to the game, which which is interesting, because I had a quick look at it, and I usually don't love when you have to facilitate an AI and there's like a flowchart of decisions. And this has an element of it, but apparently it's not too onerous. So it's something that I really, really love the base game. so I would really give it a go and see if it's fairly easy to implement. That might be quite cool.
I'm just imagining this flowchart of, does the AI see your sandcastle? Yes. Does your AI kick over the sandcastle?
Absolutely,
yes, no.
100%. Yes.
Is the AI meaner than Amy?
Every time. Every single.
That's good.
No, actually, that's the other way. Amy's always way meaner. I'm often like, oh my goodness, look at me. I'm destroying this AI, and then I go to play with Amy. I'm like, no.
That's why Maggie has her solo videos and solo time for Maggie.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the campaign. It is a really exciting campaign because more is more with Unfair. The more themes you have to pick from, the more you can combine them together. They kind of interact interestingly when you've got multiple themes in the game that you're playing. And I really love how thematic they are. Like, yes, they are theme packs, but it's not really an expansion as much as like kind of a core part of the game. Because let's be honest, we don't have much time for expansions in our life. That is something I'm coming to terms with. I always want every expansion for every game, but we just don't have time. And when we come back to them, we tend to just play with the base game. So, but for this is just really, in my mind, like kind of just giving you new possibilities for that base game.
Absolutely.
We are excited about this. We don't have the first expansion, which brought in new sets. In this one, I'm particularly excited about the hacker.
Yeah, I would say that.
That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, the hacker would be my number one, and then maybe the oceans. Because it's slightly
the ones that are like less fantasy for us are always the winds. But what was really cool about this campaign is they are subsidizing the shipping. And so if you live, I believe, in the US and Australia and a couple of other places, you pay nothing for shipping for the expansion, which is incredible. Yeah. And then if you're looking at backing slightly higher, or you're in a different country, even our friends in New Zealand, it is relatively cheap. It's very cheap. It's mostly subsidized. So that is incredible if you want to get your hands on these expansions earlier, or if you haven't tried Unfair and you want to pick up the whole bundle. It seems like a really good price to get in on it. We will pick it up, but probably at retail. It doesn't seem to be a lot of benefit in picking it up now for us, because usually it's just a time thing. And will we get to an expansion or
there's a lot of neoprene mats as well.
Oh,
for pretty much everything.
Thank you for reminding me, because I am not interested in the neoprene mats.
Wait, so you are interested?
I'm very interested in the neoprene mats. They're pretty cheap too.
Yeah, they're quite cheap.
I was quite surprised by it. Does it need a neoprene mat?
Absolutely not.
No, not at all. Not at all. Especially the individual player ones. No.
It's a very small tableau that you...
Even the board itself is like pretty small and easy.
Yeah, the board is fine. Yeah,
but they're themed and they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what you need less? The player marker that's like a solid metal ticket.
The metal at mid-one ticket.
Yeah, but I don't not want that either.
Like... It does look very cool. Like it's
really cool.
Yeah, the metal looks pretty cool.
The extras are really cool, and because you are getting the saving and shipping, maybe you can afford to add one or two of those in. But anyway, that is our number 4, the Unfair expansions. Our number 3 is a game called Earth. And Earth came out of nowhere for me. I did not know this game was coming.
Yeah.
Very interesting game. It has been likened to Wingspan and Terraforming Mars Ares.
Oh, yes.
Expedition.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued because we like both of those games.
Yeah.
And what's most interesting about this game is, well, thematically, you are
creating sustainable or self-sustaining ecosystems, essentially, in the form of a beautiful tableau, engine building sort of 4x4.
I just asked you to do the thematic side of things, and you went straight to mechanics.
Because we're creating these ecosystems, and the kind of things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing things like watering and growing and planting and composting, which is quite a cool.
I was really happy to see composting in there. That's really cool.
So like you actually kind of the cards that you're getting rid of, you can compost, and then they all kind of have a purpose, just like in the real ecosystem, which is quite cool.
Yeah, and so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drafting cards and playing them into a tableau. And you have this player board and this area for your tableau. The game ends as soon as someone plays the 16th card into their tableau. So it is a bit of a race. And the most compelling thing about this game is the way that the action selection is made, which I think is why it's been likened a little bit to Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. Because what you're going to be doing is choosing an action that you want to take, and you get the major action. Everybody else around the table gets a minor action related to that. But there's what's interesting, I think, is the tension between choosing which action you want to take, which might give you more cards. It might be doing the compost action, whatever the action is you choose, is related to a color. And that color is going to be the cards that you're able to activate in your tableau. So there's a tension between taking the action that I want to take versus activating the cards that I want to activate. And I just think that would make for a really interesting game. I really like the artwork in this game. It's photography style, which I never thought I liked until Arc Nova, and I realized actually when the photography is linked with something in the real world and it tells you a little bit of a fact about it, you know how I'm not for theme, but I do like a bit of education, and I find it interesting to look at those photos, and the photos do look really, really beautiful. There's animals, landscape, there's plants. Some people were a bit sad that the fungi are classified as plants. But they did go in to explain that there was only so many categories that they could have to make the game work. But apparently the fungi are highly related to the composting action.
Well, yes, that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
So I really like the sound of the way that everything comes together. It has been said that it's a weight of somewhere between Wingspan and Arc Nova. So it feels like it's got that like
mid-weight.
Yeah, but it will be crunchy enough to satisfy us. So I am really interested in it, and I have backed it.
Oh, well,
so
look at
there's
that.
the backed stamp for you.
There you go.
And it's actually really well priced as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I have backed it. At the moment, I'm being really careful to consider, is it worth backing it now, or can I wait and pick it up at retail? If you get Earth now, there are a few deluxeified things about it that I really think is worth it over and above the retail edition. The first thing is that you get 100 wooden resources. So they're going to be cardboard in the retail edition, and that alone is probably, for me, worth the upgrade. I really like the nice
And I wonder if that's what, because you can actually, when you're growing, you can grow things on your cards, and it actually becomes like this sort of three-dimensional stacking thing, which I'm a little bit concerned in terms of like, is this going to be very easy to knock? So I wonder what it's going to work, how it would work.
Yeah, there's been some photos and it looks a little like if you bumped it, it would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where they're going to land on the materials for that. I think these are separate. These are the other wooden resources that don't stack.
Yeah.
But they also have the playmats. And yes, I am interested in the playmats.
You love a playmat.
Well, these ones are pretty cool because they are come in a set of 5. They're pretty expensive. They're like 70 Canadian dollars or something. But that's actually not that expensive considering you're getting 5. But they are individual ones for the 16 cards that are going in your tableau.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool. And they all have a different photo. So they're photographic playmats. And they look like they would add just a nice atmosphere to the table. Because I'm not a real big fan of the player boards, actually.
Okay.
The player boards to me are really stark. And the graphic design is not really to my taste. And I know they're trying to make it stark because the artwork is so photographic and to make it pop and stand out, but I wish they did a little bit more with that. But anyway, we have backed it. I do think it represents good value. I think the game is 54 Canadian dollars, $60 Australian. So it's, you can have it delivered for under $100, and I think it looks like it's going to be a great game. So that is our number 3 and one we've backed, Earth.
Our number 2 is a game called Tindaya, which takes place in the Canary Islands in the 15th century, where we are playing as the local Aboriginal kind of tribal people, where we're going to be creating like settlements, evolving our technology, and also having to fight off the invaders, the conquistadores that are coming in to try to take over the land. All at the same time as we are making sure that we're keeping the gods happy, because the gods are very particular. So, they need their offerings, but they also want to make sure that we don't indulge or overextend the land. So when we're getting resources, that we're getting enough, we're not wasting them, that also we're keeping our people fed and no one's going hungry. Otherwise, there'll be, volcanoes and tsunamis and all sorts of different things.
Now, can we talk about the theme? Because the theme is so great with this game. I just love the perspective that it's from, the native inhabitants of the land. And it's in a time where colonialism was well and truly going on and happening. But it's from this perspective of really taking care of the land, of pushing back on, the invasion of the land. But at the same time, it's really about also, appeasing the gods and everything that's really special about the land, not not overproducing in the land and not being wasteful, like you said. It's a little bit of like, there's this area control kind of mechanic that enables you to generate more resources, but if you generate too many, more than you can spend, then there's a penalty. And so that's a really just interesting and nice thing in this game, and it really does draw me in. It reminds me a little bit of Spirit Island in terms of the theme, but the gameplay feels much more Euro, like it feels more in line with what we would be used to doing, where you're like generating resources and then you're using resources to unlock more powerful resources and that type of thing.
And interesting, this game will play solo, co-op, or competitive. So actually there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you play. But even when you're playing competitively, there's still a way where you can all lose. So you either have, if you're obviously playing cooperative, you either all win or you all lose. If you're playing competitive, you either have one person win or everyone loses.
Yeah, and for me, that is the one thing. So you gave it an 8, I gave it a 7. The reason why it's a 7 in my mind is because it still feels in the competitive mode that it is the game against the group. Like that, the game's not changing that much. The only difference is you're now accumulating points. There are some minor changes here and there. You've got some secret objectives and things, but ultimately you can still lose against the game, and you all have to be working in that semi-cooperative fashion to keep the game at bay, and then hope that you're the one that has the most points at the end if you can survive. And to me, that still feels a little bit too much in the cooperative realm of things. And I don't play that many survival games. In fact, survival games tend to be your go-to for solo games.
It reminded me of Paleo, which I really, really love playing solo, because I've kept trying to get you to play it, but it's just never really happened. So for those reasons, actually, I'm quite attracted to this game, both like thematically, but also mechanically, and even the aesthetics of it as well.
The aesthetics of it are really beautiful. I really like the illustrative style. It's really cool. It has some minis, but not too many minis. Like it feels like it's been really thoughtful in the way it's been produced. This game is actually on GameFound, so go and check it out there if you're interested in it. We are not backing it at this stage, but it would be certainly something that we would want to try. It is a little bit expensive, and for me, it's not my type of game. I'm just worried that it won't get enough table time with relying on Maggie playing it solo, basically.
Yeah. So that would be the main thing.
Yeah, but I really enjoy that the designer is actually from the Canary Islands. It's great to see these themes coming through. So really excited by that side of things. That is our number 2, Tindaya. And our number 1 game this fortnight is a game called Rolling Heights, where you will be rolling meeples.
From a great height.
From a great height. I don't think that... Oh, Rolling Heights. Yeah. Got it. This game is being brought to you by AEG and is by the very well-known designer John D. Clare, who was the designer of Space Base, which is a game that we really enjoy, and the designer of Cubitos, which is a game that we haven't played. Why haven't we played Cubitos?
Yeah, I think everyone does. Yeah.
So many people love that game, and it's just one that we thought we would somehow magically get a chance to try, and we have not yet. We haven't gone out of our way to do it, and we need to.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it'll happen.
We are very excited about, Rolling Heights, because Rolling Heights is a city building game where you are going to be building out this 3D kind of city. And the way that you're going to be doing that is by rolling meeples in your personal little meeple tray, in the shape of like, what is it? Like an apartment warehouse, something. Yeah. And you're rolling all of the meeples in there, and you're hoping that they stand upright or lay on their side.
So ready for work. So it's like, just not face down.
You don't want them face down. And so
that's probably a good tip in general. If you're an employer, you don't want to arrive at your workplace and see your employees face down.
Meeples. No.
Yeah, no.
So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be removing the ones that are standing up or lying on their side from the tray, and then you're going to be re-rolling. And eventually you're going to be pushing your luck, because if it ends up that you roll them again and they all land face down, then they're going to go on strike. Yeah. And they're going to go on strike, and they're going to leave you, and they're also going to take half of the workers with them.
Yeah.
And so at some point you need to really stop rolling them before you go bust. And now what you're going to be doing with those meeples, all the different colored meeples have different actions. A lot of them can be traded in for resources, and you're going to be using those resources to build buildings on these planning tiles that you've been able to place out onto the board. And these grow in kind of a 3D way, and at the point where a tile gets completed, then you're going to be able to score victory points.
Yeah. One thing that I think might be tricky with this game is it looks very easy to knock. Like one of those, it's precarious. These buildings are very precarious.
Yes.
So I don't know how well I think it'll stand.
Quackalope and Board Game Co. did demonstrate one of the big towers falling over and how long that would take to pick up. That does look like potentially a bit of a problem. You might have to be a bit careful. But in general, I really like this idea of finishing off a building and that person being, scoring that building and having this idea of ownership. I really like that idea. The other thing I really like about it is the fact that there are changing objectives for each game. And so that means that the way the city builds out is going to be different every time. And on top of that, you've got your own secret objectives as well that you can work towards. And I really love both a public kind of objective and the secret ones as well. It gives you something to work towards. Yeah. And I don't mind push your luck. It's not my favorite mechanic, but I like the idea of rolling meeples. It just seems like a really novel kind of cool idea.
I like the building things. Like I used to love, games like SimCity and that sort of stuff. So it's very reminiscent of that. I love anything where at the end of the game you can kind of look at it and go, look what we've created, or look what I've done. Like unless you've knocked it over. Because look at the mess we made.
Look what you've done.
Look what you've done. I hope you're happy. So but usually that's one of the things that I enjoy.
It is really nice, and I think it makes it more newbie friendly as well, because they can physically see something together come together, and it makes sense because it's a building. So I think it's a very natural theme to get into. So I'm really excited to try this game. In terms of backing it on Kickstarter, there's not a lot of Kickstarter exclusives. There are a few things, and obviously you would get the game early, but for us I think it makes more sense to wait for retail, as I believe it comes in at just under $100 because there's $29 shipping to Australia, which is pretty standard these days for a board game, but you just got to be more selective at which ones you choose to wait for. So in this case we are choosing to wait for it, but I am really excited to play it. And that is our number 1, Rolling Heights. Now, if you've reached the end of this video, we apologise for how tired we may or may not have appeared in this video.
If we didn't have our eyes open for part of it, sorry about that. Yes.
I need those Homer Simpson's glasses with the eyes on them just to show that I'm awake.
Toothpicks to
toothpicks to hold our eyes open. We are not night owls by any stretch of the imagination.
I used to be. I feel like I'm getting old, but I really used to be.
No.
Before you, yes. I used to do my best work at 3 in the morning.
When you were a party animal before me.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. And
still in just I'm a homebody, so my best work was still indoors in front of a computer or something.
And I get up very early, so this is all new for us, but we are trying to record as many videos as we can at the moment. So thank you for bearing with us. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop us a comment. Tell us, what are you backing this fortnight? We always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for all of your support, and we'll be back with more videos soon. But bye for now.
Bye.